Over the past 10 years, I have accumulated quite a lot of debt, and I had no way of really tackling it before finding this tool. Stay on this video to find out exactly how I use it and the best way of going about paying off different debts to get the most bang for your buck. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. As I promised in my last video, today I'm going to be taking you through the exact tool that I use to bring my debt down and make sure that I'm paying it off in the most efficient way possible. Let's dive straight into the spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet is something that I've been using for about the last year to try and make better payments towards my debt. I don't claim any credit for this spreadsheet at all. I found it online. I will post the link down below for where you can get it from, and I'll give them all of the credit because honestly, I don't think I could have come up with something like this. But it is an absolutely incredible piece of work. So let's dive straight into how we're using it. So I've cleared away all of my data, and I've put some sample stuff in here for us to have a look at and have a look at how this spreadsheet works. So on the calculator page here, you have kind of the title, you have the strategies in here, and then you have all of your information that you need to fill in. So the first thing to do is you have 10 rows of data that you can complete for different debts that you have. Now, obviously, some people might only have one row to fill in, some people might have more, but it's very important that you get this information correct. You put in your cards, and that is just an identifier for you. It could be the name of the bank that you've got your credit card through. It might be car finance, or you could even put your mortgage in here if you wanted to. You've then got your balances. So that is your current balance based on the dates that you've put in at the top there. The rate, that is your annual interest, okay? So you can find that on any bank statements, any credit card statements, anything like that. If it's for finance, you'll probably have to go back to your original contract, but it will be in there, and this is your annual interest. The payment is the minimum payment that is needed. Okay, so if you're using a credit card, for example, on the statement, it will say your minimum payment is this is what you need to pay. That is what you're going to fill in here. And essentially the calculation that's done, and you'll see in a second, we'll go on to the second page and you'll be able to see how all of that kind of falls together. This is the minimum amount that you want to pay. So you could put more in than your minimum, but to get the most out of this spreadsheet, I would put your bare minimum payment in there. And then the final column is the custom column, which we'll come back to in a short while. As a summary, you've then got your total amount of debt and how much you need to be paying per month just to make the minimum payments. Then you've got another field to fill in, which is your monthly payments. This is how much money you have to set aside for your debt. Okay, this might change. This might be £500 now, and then if you get a pay rise, you might say, okay, I can now allocate £600 a month, or it might go down if you have some hardship in your life and you decide, actually, I need to cool it off with the debt repayment a little bit because I need to be able to pay for these other things. You might bring that down. I would put in there what you are able to pay while making sure you're putting money aside for all of your other payments. So rent, groceries, everything like that, as well as having some money there as like an emergency fund. Everyone online always says you should have like 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. That's kind of subjective as to whether you want that extra security for the 6 months or whether you just want the 3 months. But make sure that that monthly payment is actually something that you're going to be able to do. It's absolutely pointless setting this up if it's not accurate. And then below that, it tells you what your initial snowball is. Now, all that is your monthly payment minus the minimum payments. Okay, so what it's telling you is if you're putting £500 aside, as is in this example, and your minimum payments are £125, you have £375 that you can allocate more to one of these debts. The way that that is allocated is selected through the strategy here. So you have the snowball strategy, you have the avalanche, you have the order, it's entered in the table, so literally 1 to 10. No snowball, so this is just I want to work out how much all of my minimums are going to be and how long it will take me to actually pay all of those off. And then you have custom highest and custom lowest. So In here, you can put numbers in to say, I want to pay this one off first and then this one second. And then if you use the custom, you can do highest first or lowest first. So highest being 2, lowest being 1 on this example. Finally, at the bottom here, you have your creditors in the chosen order, how long it will take to pay it off, when it will be paid off, and then at the bottom, how much interest you're going to be paying, and when you become debt-free based on what you're putting in here. And then below that, you have your snowball growth chart, so you'll be able to see so you've got like £375 here, and then when you pay off that first card, it then ups, because essentially the payment that is going towards that first card also gets added to that £375, so the full £500 is going to the second card. Hopefully that all makes sense. The biggest difference between the different strategies is snowball versus avalanche. So snowball is really, really good if you need kind of motivation to keep it going. With the snowball, you pay off the smallest balance first. So essentially it should be the quickest to pay off because it's a lesser amount. So your monthly payments will go to that and it will pay it off quicker than any of your other debts. But it will take slightly longer to pay off everything, and also your interest payments will be higher because you're potentially leaving higher interest cards for later, which means you're going to be paying more interest over the whole span of the debt period. The avalanche is different in that you pay off your highest interest first, and this means that your total interest paid over the period should be less. If we switch back to snowball, in actual fact, on this particular instance, it doesn't matter whether you do snowball or avalanche because card 2 both has the smallest balance and the most interest. So if I change that to 20%, for example, you can see that the avalanche with the highest interest first, your total interest paid is £531.43, and we will be debt free in August 2027. If I change that to the snowball, I will pay £541.09, but I will still be debt free in August 2027. So the interest is slightly more if I go the snowball route, but if we look in this table, the first card gets paid off in 4 months' time. Whereas if I go for the avalanche, the first card gets paid off in 9 months. So if you need that kind of proof that it's working and you need that little bit of a dopamine hit to say, I've paid one off, it might be worth going for the snowball, but in kind of actual money terms, in terms of how much you're going to be paying for your debt, you are much better off going for the avalanche. Okay, I've made some changes to this table and you can see I've now got 4 cards in there, and I've added 2 with different rates, interest rates, and different minimum payments. Okay, so as you can see, I've not changed the monthly payment, that is still set at £500, but now our monthly minimums are £425. This means we only have £75 to allocate in our initial snowball. What this means is that our table down here, although we're going in order of 4, 3, 1, and then 2, card number 2 actually gets paid off first. And that's because the balance is so low that just by making the monthly minimums, we're going to pay that off before anything else. As you can see, our total interest paid is just over £12,500, and we will be debt-free in July 2031. That's with the avalanche method. If I change that to the snowball method, it's actually going to take us slightly longer, but we're going to pay some of the cards off sooner. Unfortunately, because card 4 has both the biggest balance and the highest interest rate, by leaving that until last, it actually slows us down with paying everything off. If I change that card to, say, £4,000 instead, you can see that the snowball now puts that in at 3rd place, and we will be debt free by April 2030, paying £7,700 of interest. With the avalanche method, we are debt free in March 2030, and we pay £7,000 in interest. So you can see how changing the strategy in different ways actually makes a difference to when you're going to pay things off and how much interest you're going to pay in order to do it. The most important screen is this one here, the payment schedule. This is where I spend a lot of my time anytime I now come into this sheet. Because once you've worked the calculator out once, you don't really need to change it unless you want an update 3 or 4 months later. But in here you can see exactly how much you're supposed to be paying to each card. And you can see that when it gets to the end of a card, how much you need to start paying to other things. This is where I spend quite a lot of my time. And it's only by using this that I've actually been able to say, okay, this is my plan. This is what I need to follow. Before, I was just making minimum payments or occasionally adding an extra £100 here or there. But actually by setting aside a figure that I was hitting every single month and then putting it most efficiently into the different cards meant that I was able to start paying things off far quicker. As you can see, we can also start to experiment. So at the moment, using the avalanche method, we'll be debt-free in March 2030, paying just over £7,000 worth of interest. If I change that to £700, we actually become debt-free in October 2028. That's about 6 months sooner than we would have done with just £500. And our total interest paid is now just over £4,000 rather than just over £7,000. That's a massive difference and something I wouldn't have been able to calculate had I not used this spreadsheet. Now, I'm not for 1 second saying that Vertex, who created this spreadsheet, came up with the snowball and the avalanche method. If you search on YouTube for snowball or avalanche method, you will find hundreds of videos explaining it to you. And there are different ways of going about it, different ways of thinking about it, and a lot of people get very opinionated about which one is best. For me, I put it all down to the spreadsheet. I didn't want to think about it emotionally too much. I just wanted to look at the figures and see which one was the most efficient and the most effective for me. The custom column can become really useful if you have a 0% offer on one of your credit cards. For example, I know there are balance transfer offers all the time across loads of different credit cards, and if you get one of those, you get a period of time where your interest doesn't grow. So you can keep making payments, but they might be smaller, you're not gaining any interest. So this figure at the bottom here, the total interest paid, it wouldn't matter if you were to pay that card off quicker or slower, that amount stays the same. For me, this meant going in and saying, well, I don't want to be paying my highest interest first, but I also don't want to be paying my smallest balance first, because if I can pay the minimum amount towards this 0%, but make sure I pay it all off before that offer expires, that's probably going to be best for me, because it means that I can start paying off other debts that have interest on them, pay those off sooner, and then like last minute, if you like, go and pay off that balance transfer in the final month before the offer expires. That is incredibly important, by the way. If you have a balance transfer offer and you have a 0% offer, make sure you pay it off before it ends. Because typically the cards that are giving you those offers, their actual interest rate when they kick in are incredibly high. And so you then start to lose all of the benefits that you've had by having that offer. So let's just say, for example, that card number 2 has a 0% offer on it. Let's put 0% in there now, and I'm gonna decide to go for the snowball method first. But I don't want to pay this one off first, because I've got that offer until May next year, not January. So what do I want to pay off first? Well, I want to pay this one off first, I think, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. Let's have a look at see how that goes first. So I'll do lowest to highest, sorry. Card 1, yeah, that gets paid off first, but that's in August. Well, that means that I won't be able to do it then, because card 2 at the bottom here, I'm gonna have run out of that offer. That offer is gonna have expired. Let's bump that up to number 2. No, it's still expired. Okay, well, maybe I do need to pay for that one first then. Let's move these around. Okay, so yeah, so that's gonna be paid off in January. Maybe I could move that to second, but up the minimum payments. If I up the minimum payments to 200, okay, that's going to be April, maybe 250, February. Okay, well, now I can make a higher payment towards another card first and then go to card number 2. The reason that the methods have the names that they do, the snowball method is called such because when you pay off your smallest balance, it's typically going to be the one that needs the smallest minimum payment. So you pay that off, and then once that has been paid off, that money gets rolled into the next one, and it creates like a little snowball. As that then pays off the second line of credit, it then becomes even bigger, and that goes towards a third line of credit, which gets bigger again. The avalanche method is called the way that it is because when you're hitting that highest interest rate first, you then have like a big chunk of your debt that's gone and a big amount of interest that you're going to be paying gone, and then that kind of funnels downwards. So it's biggest to smallest rather than smallest to biggest, which is seen in the snowball. Whether you decide to use this spreadsheet or not is not for me to say. All I wanted to do in this video is bring to you the different methods of how to pay off your debt and how I am going about it. I found this spreadsheet to be incredibly useful for setting up a plan and then acting on it. Before I started using this spreadsheet, I was a bit laissez-faire with paying off my debt. In actual fact, I pretty much just made my monthly minimums and the debt just kept growing. So having something like this, which makes you intentional about paying off your debt, can be really important and really beneficial. I hope you found some value in this video. I hope that you find this useful, and if you want the spreadsheet, it will be in the description down below. I will link it down there. If you do decide to use it, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.